My name's Mo. I'm the product manager for our payments, risk, and checkout teams at Shopify. I'm joined by Solmaz, who leads our algorithms team and works on many of the data products that we build. We're excited to be talking to you guys about how Shopify is reducing commerce complexity and bending that learning curve that Toby was talking about this morning. But before we jump into that, a little bit of housekeeping. So if you don't have the Unite app, download it. We're going to have a short Q&A at the end of this session. You're going to have a chance to submit your questions, and we'll take as many of them as we can. And the QA code that you use for our session is YYZ. So you can submit your questions. We'll take as many as we can at the tail end of the conversation. So let's get started. So we all know that starting a business can be really intimidating. You have to build a great product, design a store, find an audience, accept payments, manage taxes. The list just goes on and on. That's pretty damn intimidating. So it's no wonder that oftentimes our customers are left feeling overwhelmed and underqualified when they're getting started. It's also no surprise that we, as Shopify employees, partners, and app developers, spend a lot of our time working on ways to help them overcome these sentiments, persevere, and push forward with their ideas. This is reflected in everything we do, from the communities we've built together, to the support services that we offer, to the products that we build. Wherever we can, we use our expertise to take the complex and confusing and simplify. We launched Shopify Payments so that our customers wouldn't have to become experts on the mechanics of card processing. We gave them Shopify Shipping to help streamline their fulfillment workflow and save them a few bucks along the way. And we're offering them timely capital so that they can grow their business in times of need when other financial institutions might be turning them away. We're identifying the key challenges they'll face, and we're knocking them off the list one by one. And in doing so, we're making commerce that much more approachable with every change we make. But the reality is that even after all of that, it's still very hard. A few years back, a very good friend of mine decided to start a business for the first time. This was at the height of the tacky sock craze, and he thought he had some really cool ideas. So he signs up for a Shopify store and starts down his path to footwear glory. Within no time, he's overcome with questions. Where do I sell? How do I find an audience? At what price? Do I offer discounts? Do I give away shipping? These are all really, really hard questions, even for a seasoned veteran. And the reality is that most of our merchants aren't seasoned veterans. They're new to this. They've never done it before. They don't know where to start. But that's where we all come in. We all have done this many times before. We are experts. As entrepreneurs, we've lived hundreds of thousands of lives, and we've died hundreds of thousands of times. Our expertise is the collective sum of all of the experiences of our customers, both good and bad. It's every decision they've ever made and the outcome of those decisions too. Not just their successes, but also their failures, their regrets, their sleepless nights. We've been hundreds of sock stores. We've sold thousands of ties and millions of shoes. We've seen what works and what doesn't, and we've kept a record of everything along the way as well. And what we're here to discuss today is how we're beginning to leverage all of this knowledge and provide it to our customers and the products that we build. And in doing so, we're not only simplifying commerce, but we're also giving them a leg up over their competition just because they chose to use Shopify.
So we really do sit on a treasure trove of data at Shopify. Just the traffic we see across Shopify is enormous. In 2016 alone, we saw over tens of billions of visitors flowing to our merchant storefronts. These people spent over 1 billion hours surfing, reading, and buying. Now, these numbers are impressive, but it's not the numbers themselves that matter the most. What's important is that they represent an enormous amount of experience that our merchants lack, but is readily available at our disposal. In the past, we have given our merchants tools to access their own business, to use it to observe and describe how things are going. The reports we offer in the admin are a very good example of this. However, we have left it to the merchant to extract meaning from these tools. We are now moving towards a new era, an era where intelligent products do this heavy lifting for our merchants. saving them valuable time and energy that they can direct to the more important areas of their business. An example of this is the home card we shipped earlier last year. It looks fairly simple, but it's actually very powerful. If you're selling shoes for the first time in your life, you don't know where to find an audience. But we have been selling shoes for over a decade. We know it's tricky to find an audience, and we know that you should be promoting your products on Wanilo. This home card was designed to help our merchants increase their traffic. And that's what we mean by leveraging our collective knowledge and expertise. We can now transfer this knowledge to our merchants in a meaningful snippet that they can quickly act on and succeed. This card saved our merchants hundreds of hours in research and trial and error, and it gave them an important insight right out of the box for no other reason than they chose to join Shopify. That's an intelligent product, packaging a decade's worth of knowledge into a seamless experience for our merchants. It's no wonder that Noah says, "I want to keep this on my home dashboard forever." Now, our knowledge isn't just limited to what we know about our merchants. We also know a fair bit about their customers, the buyer. We see the buyer across every step of the purchase journey. We see where they came from, how they spent their time, how they navigated the store, and whether or not they placed an order. And during the purchase journey, we also learn a lot about their interests, the products they like, their size, their color preferences. They let us learn about how they like to pay, where they live, and how they can be contacted. There's a mountain of data here, and there's lots that can be done with it for the betterment of our merchants. And all of this information I talked about is about a single buyer's journey on a single store. We see this tens of billions of times across hundreds of thousands of stores. There's a massive opportunity for us to take this information and incorporate the learnings in the products we build so that our merchants don't have to reinvent the wheel and figure this all out on their own.
So a really good illustration of this is the work that we're doing on the payments and purchase experience front. As many of you know, cart abandonment continues to be one of the biggest problems in e-commerce. In spite of the many advances in web usability over the years, the act of completing a purchase online has largely remained unchanged. We're still fumbling around long checkout forms, entering our personal, billing, and shipping information. The only thing that's actually really changed is the screens we're fumbling around on have gotten smaller. So numbers like these aren't that surprising then. According to the Baymard Institute, over 2/3 of buyers abandon a checkout after they've created their cart. Over $260 billion worth of abandoned carts in Europe and US alone in 2016. It's also worth mentioning that these numbers always understate the scope of the problem, because it's not just that first sale that you've lost. You've lost every repeat purchase that buyer represents, as well as any word of mouth or referrals that they may have sent your way. So there's a huge opportunity here. And while Shopify's checkout certainly performs better than the market, there's still a long ways for us to go as well. That's why we've been very committed to tackling this problem head on. We partnered up with the likes of Apple Pay and PayPal so that our customers could offer that slick buying experience to the hundreds of millions of consumers that have these wallets set up. We worked with Amazon Pay to bring their experience to our merchants as well. And most recently, we're doing the same with Google with Android Pay too. And while all of these have been steps in the right direction, it's certainly not been enough, which is why earlier today, we announced the launch of our own accelerated checkout service, Shopify Pay. Shopify Pay allows buyers to save their checkout information once and have it used to expedite their buying across our entire platform, regardless of the store that the buyer visits. We believe that it's a great complementary addition to any checkout the options that our merchants are offering today. It's global, meaning that buyers in any market can use it. It's SMS-based, meaning that you don't need a specific type of device, operating system, or browser to work with it. And it's largely unbranded, keeping the buyer focused on the merchant's brand as they're checking out. So how does it work? Well, first, the buyer needs to opt in. When they're completing a purchase on any eligible Shopify store, they'll be presented with the opportunity to enroll themselves into the product at the end of the checkout. They simply add a phone number which will be used to verify their identity on subsequent purchases. And you can see how lightly branded this is. Now, when that same buyer is seen across any Shopify-powered store, they confirm their identity by entering a 6-digit code that we send them via SMS. And that's it. They complete the purchase. So they go from 16 fields to 2. Now, the results we've seen during our beta have been very impressive. We cut down the amount of time it takes to complete a checkout by over 40%. That's less time for buyers to be fumbling around with their phones, getting frustrated, or getting distracted by notifications from other apps. Ultimately, this all means more sales for our merchants, more repeat purchasing, and happier customers. We've got 15,000 merchants running Shopify Pay on their stores today, and we're going to start rolling it out to everyone else over the coming weeks. We've already seen hundreds of thousands of buyers enroll as well, and we expect that number to grow exponentially over the next year. It's worth reiterating that when these buyers opt in, they're doing so across our entire platform. So merchants aren't just offering a faster checkout experience to their own repeat purchasers, they're doing it for customers that they may never have seen before as well. That's huge. So we talked a bit about Apple Pay and PayPal. We introduced our own accelerated checkout service, Shopify Pay. How do we bring all of this together in an elegant manner? How can we avoid having websites that look like this? It looks like shit. There's 5 call to actions, and the buyer doesn't know where to direct their attention. It's ugly, it's noisy, and rather than minimizing decision-making for the buyer, we're actually increasing the burden. This leads to a decrease in conversions. But what if we could use our pool of data to create a personalized experience based on what we know about the buyer's payment preferences? What if this same page could be presented to 2 different buyers in 2 different ways at the same time? So here's a teaser of some early explorations on how to solve this problem as well. So if you look at the phone on the left side, the buyer has Apple Pay set up on their phone. And by setup, we mean they have a shipping address and a card added to the wallet. We can detect that. So we default to Apple Pay because we know that's what they're most likely to use. This same buyer is also enrolled into Shopify Pay, which is why you see a Visa on file. They can choose to use that, enter the 6-digit code that we send them, and complete their purchase quickly. All other checkout options are neatly tucked away, but the buyer still has access to them should they continue to our checkout. Now, this customer on the right, he has PayPal set up, PayPal One Touch on his phone. We can detect that, and we default to that, and we hide all the other options. They complete the purchase without noise from any other checkout options that don't apply to them. Now, we're going to be rolling out our smart checkout buttons in the form of liquid drops that merchants and theme developers can use on their cart pages, but also on the product page as well. So you should expect to hear a lot more from us on this in the coming months.
Thanks, Paul. Fraud detection is another really good example of work we are doing that leverages the network effects of our platform. Fraud is a game of cat and mouse. The bad guys are constantly looking for weak systems, and then they find ways to defraud them. This is usually done using stolen credit card information to purchase very expensive items. For someone who's new to the business, this is a really scary situation. Most of the time, they've already shipped the product and lost the money as well. And how are they supposed to know that someone sitting behind a computer screen halfway across the world is using stolen information? And even if they know that, how are they supposed to stop that from happening? Some of them don't even know what chargebacks are. The good news here, if any, is that Shopify knows that chargebacks are a thing. Collectively, we've seen numerous cases of fraud against our merchants over the last 10 years. And along this journey, we've become really good at spotting the fraudsters. We now look at our massive data sets of millions of orders, both fraud and non-fraud, and then we try to detect patterns that would allow us to differentiate between the two. We do this for every single order. Can you imagine if a single merchant sat there and tried to run this analysis on their own during a flash sale? This is beyond the computational power of the human mind. It requires the ability to detect patterns among millions of bits of information as they come true. This gets even harder because of the fact that fraudsters are sneaky and they evolve their behavior to work their ways past our system. So these patterns keep changing. We knew we needed a way to scale and automate the fraud detection process. And that's where machine learning excels, in extracting patterns and insights based on the most up-to-date information that we have available across 400,000 stores. Our models are being constantly trained and retrained and adapting to the latest information as soon as it becomes available. This work has already resulted in a significant improvement in the fraud detection, one that gives our merchants the benefits of the network effects of our platform so that they can fulfill more orders with greater peace of mind while seeing fewer incidents of fraud. This, again, is an example of how Shopify reduces complexity. We've taken an area of concern for a budding entrepreneur, fraud in this case, and we've made it so that they don't even have to think about it. So we've talked a lot about how we are bringing 10 years' worth of learnings to the products that we are building. Now let's talk a little bit about how we are bringing this learnings to the rest of the ecosystem, to the things that you folks have built. Over the last 10 years, our incredible community has contributed over 1,400 apps to the App Store. This has left our merchants with lots of great tools and options to help them grow their business. But 1,400 apps, that's a lot to choose from. And if you're starting a business for the first time, you don't really know what you need or when you're going to need it. But we do. We've been watching millions of entrepreneurs over the last decade in tens of industries use your products at different stages of their business. And using all of this information, we've now started the process of building personalized app recommendations. We're now generating per-shop app recommendations that take many features into account, things such as the store location, industry, sales volume, velocity, and the apps they've already installed. And using all of this information, we deliver a recommended for you section. So that, for example, a merchant based in Delhi that's having a hard time with order fulfillment is immediately directed to a local popular option available to her, delivery. And we're not just using these algorithms to power the recommended for you section. We're also using our immense pool of data to determine the order in which different categories of apps are going to be displayed in the App Store, and also the individual apps ordering within each category. And ultimately, all of this means that our merchants are more likely to find the right tool at the right time to grow their business. These algorithms are also improving and customizing our search results. This is a big shift for the App Store. The store is no longer just a single ranked list of apps that's the same for all shops. The merchants can now discover the apps that are most relevant to them, and as a result, more apps are getting exposure than ever before.
So we talked a bit about how we're using our massive pool of knowledge to tackle some of the toughest problems in commerce, from cart abandonment to fraud detection to personalization. You're going to be seeing many more products from us along these lines, products that leverage what we've seen and learned from the successes and failures of hundreds of thousands of businesses for the betterment of the entire ecosystem. So what does all of this mean? It means that if a merchant were to sign up for a Shopify store and start a business for the very first time today, we'll have given them a world-class commerce system that not only offers the tools and features they're looking for, but also gives them a decade's worth of learnings and millions of orders worth of experience. That's powerful. Thank you. Q&A time.
Yeah, Q&A. Thank you. Okay. Speaking of Apple Pay, does the new hardware support it?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Is it possible to integrate Shopify Pay to native mobile apps for stores, similar to adding Apple Pay to an app?
At the moment, it's only available for the web checkout on the online store, but we're also exploring how to extend that to other channels.
With Shopify Pay, how does the customer change payment method if they want to use a different credit card?
Yes. So on that last screen, after you've entered the 6-digit code, you're actually presented with all the information we have on file for you. You can edit any of that information, and depending on what you edit, you'll go into a slightly different experience.
Can we take advantage of the accelerated checkout provided by Shopify Pay for sales channel apps?
Yeah, so very similar. We're actually going to start, and sorry, was that about the accelerated checkouts or the smart checkout button?
Accelerated checkout.
Yeah, so you should be able to extend most accelerated checkouts to most channels. But if there's a specific one that you have a question about, feel free to ping Solmaz or myself directly on the app, and we can speak about that separately.
What does this mean for new payment startups?
The launch of Shopify Pay, I assume?
I assume, yeah.
Like our payment strategy has never really changed. At the end of the day, we're going to do what helps the merchant sell the most possible. So Shopify Pay is really about acceleration. It's not really about the payment methods they choose, whether it be a card or ACH or some form of local payment method in Europe. So that hasn't changed. That won't change. I think Shopify Pay falls into the broader strategy of accelerating checkouts as much as possible. So if anything, we'd start to think about how to extend those capabilities to non-credit card payment methods that are being offered by partners that have integrated gateways into Shopify as well.
When can we expect to see Europe to see Shopify Pay?
Sorry?
When can we expect Europe to see Shopify Pay?
So Shopify Pay will be immediately available to any merchant who's using Shopify Payments. Shopify Payments is available in the UK and Ireland in Europe, Australia, Canada, US as well. So there will be a significant European presence to start. And as we expand the footprint of Shopify Payments, you can expect to see that footprint expand as well.
Okay. What countries have the highest fraudsters? For us, it's Vietnam. I think we see similar trends. I think similar trends are shared actually across the industry for countries.
I think it's worth also noting that the algorithms that Solmaz spoke about do retrain themselves quite regularly. So if there are patterns where there's a wave of fraud coming from a certain locale or from a certain type of device, we do pick these things up, and they then inform how to score future transactions. So,
yeah, they're quite reactive to what we see currently happening. Sorry, there are so many questions. I'm trying. Will Shopify Pay be offered outside of Shopify shops also?
At the moment, we don't have any plans to extend it outside of the Shopify platform. We do see it as a nice complement to any checkout options that merchants on Shopify have added, but we don't see that extending outside yet.
Is there any move to use massive data pool for marketing improvements? Yeah, we have plans to use the pool of data we have in marketing to improve, and because we hear from merchants that marketing is one of their main pain points, so you can expect to hear more about that from us as well.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right.
You can catch
Thanks
us
a
in
lot,
the
guys.
audience. Yeah.
Yeah. You can find. Thank you.